Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to a special review for thrash metal titans, one of the big four, Megadeth, and their brand new album, The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead. It just came out today, in fact, September 2nd of 2022, so you can run out and go pick this thing up following the review, but it has been 6 long years since they put out a brand new album, making it the longest gap between albums. And so we're going to dive into that and the whole album and everything in just a bit. But before we do, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this, with a special review for the brand new Megadeth album, The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead. So I want to give you guys a little bit of background here on the band. For those of you that maybe don't know this, the band actually formed 39 years ago in 1983 from the ashes of Dave Mustaine being kicked out of Metallica. And that story is pretty well known, so we're not diving into all of that. But even though that in and of itself was a tragedy, we still got Megadeth out of it. So, got to take the good with the bad there. And the band itself has had varying degrees of success over the years, with a string of platinum albums starting in 1986 with Peace Sells But Who's Buying, followed up in 1988 with So Far So Good So What, and then my personal favorite in 1990, Rust in Peace. But it all culminated in 1992 with Countdown to Extinction, which is another great album. It's basically Megadeth's version of the Black Album, more straight ahead rock than thrash. Good album nonetheless, and that's another thing that Megadeth has always done, is made different styles albums and things of that nature, which is pretty cool. And so the band itself has had a revolving door of musicians, with Dave Mustaine being the only constant throughout all the different lineups. And so the band actually temporarily broke up 20 years ago in 2002, but they quickly reformed in 2004, which all kind of came about with the first of what was supposed to be Dave Mustaine's solo album. The system has failed, but of course was retitled as a Megadeth album. Cool one too, because we had the return of Chris Poland on that album. And so since then, the band itself has released 5 more studio albums, including 2016's Dystopia, which you can see there behind me. And that led to the band winning their first Grammy Award for Best Metal Performance. And now here we are, finally 6 years after that, with the brand new album, The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead. So let's jump into that here. 16th studio album, as I mentioned, first in 6 years. This one here is also the first one to feature new drummer Dirk Van Buren, formerly of Soilwork. We've also got bassist James Lomenzo returning here to the band, his first time with the group since 2009's In Game. And however, he doesn't play on the album. He's mentioned in the album itself. And if you followed the whole bit of drama that prompted all of that, then you know this story. But the honor of playing bass on the album goes to Steve DiGiorgio, who I know from Testament, but has also played with many other bands, including Death. And the lineup itself is rounded out with guitarist Kiko Lorio, who is returning, this being his second album, Dystopia being his first. So it's always interesting. We've always got people coming and going, but it adds different flavors to it. Now, the album itself took over 2 years to complete, and that too is the longest time that the band has spent recording an album, which I think also in turn leads to why this is the longest gap of 6 years between albums. Now, first thing I noticed about this album is there's a lot more melody on this one here than previous album, Dystopia. I like that a lot. I think that it makes for much more interesting listen. With that in it, I also find really interesting that the title track of this album, The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead, sounds very similar in nature to the title track from Dystopia. So I think if you like that song, which was my favorite song from the last album, you're going to like this album a lot right there. Now, musically, the album holds my attention better and throughout, whereas Dystopia did not do that. So I have to admit, I was not a big fan of the last album. There was aspects and elements that I really liked, but it was more about pieces and bits and stuff like that that I really clung to on it, as opposed to it being one of those great albums that I put on and listened from start to finish. Now, another thing that I've noticed about this album here is that Dave Mustaine's vocals are beginning to show some wear. No surprise, he's gotten a lot older, certainly. That is to be expected. No slight on that there. It is just something that I'm beginning to hear. However, I'll say this, it still works really well in the same way that the older that Alice Cooper has gotten, his image, his sound, his vocal style works with that persona. Dave Mustaine has always had a real raw, aggressive, rough style vocal, so it still works even though it is not as sort of pure and seamless as it has been in the past. So as usual though, there is a very high level of musicianship throughout. I feel that Kiko has really come into his own on this album here. I didn't feel like I really heard his style of playing on the previous album. That's just my opinion, but I feel like I can really hear him standing out, differentiating himself from what it is that Dave Mustaine does, and that's nice. I like having two distinct different guitar players when listening to two at a time. And then we've got Dirk on here for the first time, and he lays down some excellent drumming, same as what he's done with Soilwork. This thing here keeping the energy really going on it. And so let's go ahead and move into talking about some standout tracks here that these guys really put in the energy on it. So first one, right off the bat, the title track, The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead. I was glad this was not released as a single and is the first track on the album, really having a great one that pulls you in on it. It's just a good album opener. As I mentioned, it's got a lot of melody on it. I think this would easily fit on one of their albums in the 90s. So again, if you're a fan of that era, you're gonna like this album. Track number 2, Life in Hell, kicks things up a notch here. It's got some real furious drumming from Dirk, and then it's got an amazing guitar solo from Kiko on it. Moving on to track number 5, Sacrifice. I like this one a lot. Sort of despite its high energiness, this one here's got a much more melodic vibe to it, giving the impression that we're slowing down on the album, but in fact we're really not if you listen to the furiousness of this thing here. But that's again one of the things that I like about this album. There's a lot of different styles and things taking place on here for a lot of sort of peaks and valleys, making for a very interesting listen throughout. Track number 8, Killing Time. This one here is just a nice straight ahead, classic sort of chugging thrash rocker, the kind that we all love. The guitar lead in this follows the vocal, which I think has a really nice effect during the chorus on this one. And then track number 10, Celebutant. This one here is one of my favorites on the album. I like its breakneck pace of guitars on this and the vocal overlay, the two working together on it. It's got a really cool middle breakdown section where the band just locks into a really tight groove on it. And then it features my favorite solo interplay, finishing off the song itself on just a really high note. And one last one on here that I want to talk about, track number 11, Mission to Mars. This is the kind of song that's got much more of a rock vibe to it. We've heard Megadeth do this, on different albums in the past before. Sort of less of that straight ahead thrash sound on it. But for me, it gives the album much more depth, having a few tracks like this on it. And I feel like this is what was really missing from the last album. Again, that just being my opinion on it. So let's go ahead and take a look at this thing. Front cover there, very cool artwork that's done on it. I also like the stacking of the title there, hitting up with the main, word itself, Sick, Dying, Dead right there. I will say this though, the album's got a very dark amount of artwork with it. This is the inside. I popped the disc out so that you guys could easily see the band members there behind that. Let me take the cover out from the booklet to give you guys a little bit better view. But if you check out the vinyl, the word Megadeth is much brighter or crisper on it, I should say. And also the bodies that are laying down at the feet read through far better on the vinyl art than they do on the CD art. So I'm a little bit bummed about that. And we got on the inside, it's got lyrics all the way through. Nothing fantastic, so I won't go through all of that, but you can just kind of see thank yous and things of the nature. So the only place we get band photos is on the inlay card there. And then just quickly, there's the backside with the tracks itself. Now, there are 5 different versions of this. This was the standard 12-track edition. There are digital edition, a Target edition, so Target store exclusive, and an exclusive website edition. All of those have 14 tracks, but each one has one of those being something different on it. And then there is a lenticular LP version of it that features a bonus 7-inch, giving it the 14 tracks as well. So bottom line on this thing, has the long wait of 6 years been enough? 12 tracks, 55 minutes on it, not counting if you get those 2 extra tracks, it's longer, more close to 65 minutes. But yes, with the quality of material on this, I can easily say Megadeth is back. Just like their first single promoted, We Will Be Back, or Will Be Back. That also being the last song on the album, I will say that intensity, that high energy of that you guys know if you checked it out from when it was released. Closing the album is a fantastic way to do so on such a super high note. It just really brings everything to a head, sends you off the right way. As I mentioned, lots of variety of material on this thing here. It is a full-on thrash album with a few sort of chugging rockers mixed in there. So don't think that this thing here doesn't just have that furious pace throughout. It certainly does, but I think it has much more variety and allowing for those peaks and valleys, making for a much more interesting listen. Something that I think will give something here for all Megadeth fans in it with that variety of material and so forth. So do yourself a favor, go check this out. I do highly recommend it. And there you go. That is the album review for the brand new Megadeth album, The Sick, The Dying, and The Dead. Certainly, if you will, consider sharing this video out on social media. I would greatly appreciate it. And I know Megadeth would certainly appreciate it as well, getting that extra little publicity from you guys. All right, everyone, take care. Have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.